Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. We're going to begin first here with an international update, and I specifically want to be talking about soil moisture values in Ukraine, Belarus, and parts of the Russian Wheatbelt. So taking a look here at this cropland map, let's now get right on into that soil moisture data. These maps come from the SMAP data set, and that is showing you on the left surface soil moisture anomalies and on the right subsurface soil moisture anomalies for Belarus here and Ukraine here. Now what we're looking at is there are some pockets across both regions where we do see some drier soils at this particular point. And looking back over the last 180 days, we do notice that through the month of June and into July, there was above average precipitation for Ukraine. But as we finished July and began August and September, precipitation amounts really dropped off, and they went through some prolonged drier time periods here, really bringing precipitation amounts on the whole back toward normal, but it's actually been quite dry over the last 30 to 45 days in this area. We're going to take a look at that precipitation forecast in a few moments, but before that, I would like to show you what's going on over here in the southern part of the Russian Wheatbelt, specifically right here, just to the east of Ukraine. That particular region is also showing up with drier than normal soil conditions, while north of that area, getting over to this part of the Russian Wheatbelt, is showing above average soil moisture. So this is going to be kind of some regional drought stresses that we're concerned about here as we look over into what's going on in this part of Russia. Focusing in right here on this region, we can see that it's been a very similar situation to Ukraine. Plenty of precipitation earlier in the season, but as of late, you can see the bigger holes here and some of the rainfall amounts that did come in through. Well, just notice these numbers are not big. This is 0.3 of an inch, of precipitation here. That was a big event. So we're going to watch this area carefully as they go into the planting of their winter wheat for what those soil moisture profiles look like to see if it causes any early season stress on the next year's wheat crop. From there, I would like to show you at least the forecast for the next 15 days. While precipitation amounts in parts of western Ukraine getting into Belarus are expected to increase, and this of course goes up toward Moscow, we do notice that as you get to the east of that area, drier conditions are expected to continue into the next 15 days, which takes us to the middle of September. Keeping on this international view, let's get a quick update on La Nina. Put this in yesterday's long-range forecast, but we are seeing pretty robust signals that this La Nina is going to continue to develop as we finish summer and get into fall. What we're noticing is that ocean temperatures are right now at minus 0.7 degrees Celsius, so we've kind of seen this nice downward trend as the trade winds have really picked up, and there is plenty of cool water beneath the surface here to be upwelled, to be brought to the surface to continue to see these cooler anomalies across the Pacific. And with the trade winds forecast to be strong over the next 15 days, there's no reason why that wouldn't continue to happen. So the La Nina right now seems to be the most dominant mode of controlling the tropical weather in the in the tropics for the coming days. From there, I do want to show you a consequence of that. If you look over here on the right in the background, that is for the month of September precipitation anomalies for South America. We notice that we're seeing yet another model run here where we've got drier conditions in Brazil's main growing area with only wetter conditions in northern Argentina, southern Brazil, and Uruguay. The MJO is stalled a bit over the Indian Ocean, so you can see there's good upper level support here over this part of the Indian Ocean, but notice across the Pacific and then right here on top of South America, there is generally subsidence in the atmosphere, which is going to really suppress vertical motion and delay the onset of the South American monsoon, possibly not letting it really get going until we get into the month of October. So we'll just see what this does in terms of the planting of soybeans, and if it does delay them, what that might mean for the delay in the planting of safrinha corn and cotton. Meanwhile, you did see in the previous image, if I just go back here, look how warm the ocean temperatures are here in the main development region for hurricanes. So if we get back to what we're looking at right now, we are expecting throughout the month of September anomalously high air pressure cell to be sitting there just off the Iberian Peninsula. So it's just off the map here, but sitting in this region. And this will help guide any systems toward the Lesser Antilles, toward the Bahamas, and potentially toward the east coast of the United States and Florida. The Gulf of Mexico, while it is cool in here right now after Hurricane Laura, we are seeing the ocean temperatures recover quickly. Nana is going this direction, so not necessarily going to get into the Yucatan, or get north of the Yucatan, into the Bay of Campeche and cause issues. And Omar is going to be moving out to open ocean. So what we're going to be watching very carefully will be development right in through this area over the next 5 days, where the National Hurricane Center has given a better than 70% chance of having development out of this next African easterly wave that's coming through this area. Now, one thing I want to point out from my videos videos over the last a couple of weeks here is I want to show you the pronunciation guide for these names and a change that the National Hurricane Center made, specifically with this name right here. So these are all the tropical cyclone names that we have, and this is just the next 3, or this year included, but the next 3 years. Do you see how they say to phonetically pronounce the word or the name Laura? Now, if you noticed in my previous videos, I was saying Lura, and that's because they just recently made this adjustment because their old pronunciation guide said that. Do you see it right here? That's how they said to pronounce that name. So I apologize if it sounded weird as I was talking about that particular system. Now, since we're talking about the tropics, I want to take you back to an update on the 2 separate systems we are watching in the Pacific. One right now that moved through the Korean Peninsula late last night and is now sitting over the North China Plain, and the second system that is following it moving toward Japan. Here's the forecast tracks of these next 2 systems, and you can see the one to the south going right here over parts of the Korean Peninsula as well, while the system to the north is moving over the North China Plain. Concern here over flooding as we move toward the end of their growing season as well. And just remember that in this particular area, that's where a lot of corn and soybeans are farmed in China. So some flooding rains here coming from these 2 tropical systems in the coming days. My concern about these 2 systems, though, is what they're going to do once they get absorbed into the jet stream level flow. So if you just take a look from the top down here, tomorrow night, Friday night, we can see, looking down on the North Pole, here's the southern system, here's the northern one, and what I'm going to be watching carefully into next week is to see if these 2 features end up reinforcing the trough that is over the Aleutian Islands. And here's the reason why. The more we set up and establish that trough over the Aleutian Islands, the more often we will see a split flow pattern and a blocked pattern here across the western United States, sending a piece of the jet stream north and possibly having these lows that are cut off here just off the coast. That builds a ridge in the western part of the United States and more troughing here over the Great Lakes. The end result is the western U.S. is hot, and the central plains of the United States and Canada will have intrusions of cooler air, and it'll also keep the Great Lakes cool. We'll keep the southeast warm and the east coast warm, but it'll actually stay quite active, and the jet stream will stay bunched up, continuing here into the North Atlantic as well. So the progression of this pattern, specifically this trough over the Aleutian Islands, will be the most critical piece to this upcoming forecast. So let's get on into that. The last 30 days, we remember that our precipitation patterns have been dominated by that western ridge. We've had quite a bit of ring of fire precipitation there, but overall a drier pattern in the west. There's been a segment of the primary corn and soybean belt getting back into the central plains that has been very, very dry as well. During the month of August, this area actually had its 5th driest on record. Those records go back to 1893. Because of Hurricane Laura and 2 stalled out boundaries, we've really flooded out parts of the Mid-South, getting back into the Red River Valley, and also here in the southeast, getting up into the Mid-Atlantic, things have been very wet. So what I want to do for you next is I'd like to show you how well the models have done over the last month. So I showed you this a while ago. Let's just take another look at it. It's the difference between the forecast precipitation and the actual precipitation over the last 30 days. So anywhere that you see red, the model over-predicted the precipitation. So for example, with Hurricane Laura, the model was really aggressive on bringing in much higher precipitation amounts than actually fell. That is not to say there wasn't flooding, but it's just to show you that it was very aggressive on those precipitation amounts. You can see that it continually over-predicted for a lot of the primary corn and soybean belt, except for when you get up into parts of the Dakotas and Minnesota and central Wisconsin, where a few thunderstorm complexes put down quite a bit of precipitation. It also under-predicted the influence of the flow around that big high that's set up here. And as a result, maybe some of the lightning-induced fires that we were seeing in the western United States were not as well predicted by some of the models. So I just want to kind of give you this perspective. And of course, you can take a look over there in the eastern part of the United States. But from there, let's just take a look at our last 7 days, because we have seen a tremendous amount of rainfall that is extended from the Red River Valley here through parts of the Mid-South and over toward the Tennessee and the Ohio River Valley. Meanwhile, it's only been hit or miss showers and storms into this section of the U.S. with wetter conditions north and also here along the Gulf Coast. This has all been gathering in parts of the Northeast where we've had some locally heavy rainfall as well. So from there, let's take a look at a satellite animation, and this was yesterday just as the sun was setting. Now I'm going to pause it here because I want to show you the smoke extent in the western United States once again. So California continuing to deal with quite a few forest fires here, but also we have some large larger fires that are up in parts of the Cascades. You can see the smoke plume from this one blowing here across parts of the Columbia Basin. There are some fires here in the northern Rockies as well. But as I step this back, let me just show you one other thing here. Watch the circulation from Omar. You can see that the main circulation is disconnected from where a lot of the convection is as I press play on this. Just a beautiful animation there. Well, in the overnight hours, we continue to see the moisture streaming right in through this area, and that's where we've had some locally heavy rains in the overnight hours last night, continuing to produce a flooding problem in that region. So we do see that flood watches have been issued for this area, and on the backside, dense fog advisories. We have heat watches that are, this is heat advisories that are up here for parts of the Carolina coast, getting into Virginia. And if you go back west, we have air quality issues, excessive heat watches, and warnings. And we're going to be seeing much above average temperatures to the west of that line that I just drew there through the foreseeable future. So let's get into this, okay? Over the next 60 hours or so here, our main concern today, well, let me just play this forward for you. Pause it right here. Early this morning, in through this area, widely scattered showers and storms and some locally heavy rains falling on some places that are very, very wet. If you remember on the previous image, you saw the blues that were in Lake Superior. That was actually for a lake storm warning. So what we've got here is a deep low pressure cell that's moving right over Lake Superior, and as it does so, kicking up some very strong winds and possibly some storms just along the southern edge of that front. Now, as we work our way through the day on Thursday, getting into Thursday afternoon and evening, you can see the advancement of that front producing some scattered showers in through this area. But we will be watching this part of the mid-Atlantic for the potential for some strong to severe storms, as indicated by the Storm Prediction Center on the map over there on the left. Now, playing this forward, you can also see this evening, we're going to watch this section of Texas for the potential for development of some storms that could produce outflow that makes a squall line that goes right here through this part of central Texas. As this front clears things out after we get into early Friday morning, you can just see they're working our way through Friday and then into Saturday. Maybe some scattered showers through parts of Wisconsin getting over into Michigan. But other than that, things are relatively calm as we begin our weekend. Now, from there, I will be watching carefully this region here on the 5th, right in through here, because there is really great model agreement on a piece of this little shortwave coming out in that area, potentially initiating a round of strong to severe storms coming out of Minnesota into Iowa. We're going to watch that carefully to see it evolve into this weekend. We could also be watching for more thunderstorm development in this part of Texas. But other than that, much of this upcoming weekend, which is represented in this map, is going to be relatively dry for most of the United States. Just some rain showers that are in parts of the Canadian prairies where the jet stream is really gaining momentum and is about to change in a big way. And we need to talk about that. I'm going to show you 5 separate views of the forecast of rainfall through the next 7 days, because the model discrepancies here are very important. So this is first from the National Weather Service, which uses a blended product. And we can see where they've got things painted over on the drier side, for example, in parts of the eastern Corn Belt and the southeast. But from Texas through the southern plains, getting into the central plains, and then up toward Iowa, Wisconsin, and the Great Lakes, things are looking quite wet, and that extends in Ontario. Now from there, I'd like to next show you what the European model is seeing. You notice that the European model has the wetter weather in Texas. It also has this event coming right in through here over the weekend. But on the backside, we see much more precipitation here butting up against the Rocky Mountains in the high plains, and very dry in the southeast and through parts of the eastern Corn Belt. Now, sticking with kind of this European feel, I want to show you Germany's icon model. It's actually quite similar with the exception of what's coming through. Look at this again on the European. What's coming through parts of the northern plains. See it here? It's got a much more aggressive storm track through this area, potentially putting down more precipitation. It's also bringing in higher precipitation amounts out of Texas into the southern plains, but dry in parts of the eastern Corn Belt and dry down here in parts of the southeast. Now, to compare these two models which are run in Europe to what we have coming from the U.S. Modeling Center, what a major difference in this corridor right in through here. We got to talk about why that is, because not only is the GFS showing very wet conditions in Iowa, northern Missouri, cutting through Illinois, Indiana, southern Wisconsin, Michigan, all right? But so is the Canadian model. So these two models run in North America are very aggressive with this setup, giving very wet conditions into this area. And I'm going to explain to you which model is producing these results based on the upper level flow. So let's go straight to that. Since the GFS and the European are the two staples, we're going to look at those. On the left, I have the 500 millibar heights from the GFS, and on the right, it's the European. And what we're looking at here is troughs and ridges. Now, these two models are in great agreement through the weekend. I mean, I just paused this here Friday evening. Look, they both got the same ridge out west. They've got the ridge over the southeast and the trough coming through here, producing the strong winds over Lake Superior, for example, cutting into this area. Now, after that, let's just work our way through the weekend. So this is now getting into Saturday night, still good agreement, getting into Sunday afternoon, now getting into Monday morning. Now, it's at this point where the models begin to show differences. You can see that the European, do you see how this trough extends back into parts of Montana where the trough does not do that in the GFS? From that point forward, the European will throw one piece of that trough over here toward the Four Corner states, and the GFS does not do that. Now, what time are we? We're out to next Tuesday midday. As we go from Tuesday midday into Wednesday, the difference between these two troughs is enormous. And we're just here inside of a week in this forecast. The European leaving a piece, a cutoff low over the Four Corner states. It's cut off from the main trough, which is moving out of parts of Manitoba into Ontario. The GFS leaves everything connected here and has a trough barreling through Kansas toward Missouri at this point. That is why out ahead of this, so the trough sweeps in like that, out ahead of it, very wet conditions here. But the European, see, it even has ridging in this area, which is why it said dry for this part of the country. The European says, hey, bring in the cold and even snow to, well, maybe as down as 6,000 feet here in the Rocky Mountains. Now, from there, as we go forward, the two models continue on their divergent path. The European warming this area up, leaving, look at this, leaving this trough way over here in the Four Corners. The GFS, by the time we get to next Thursday afternoon, has us coming right through Missouri. And the differences in these two troughs as they move through mean a lot for our temperature and precipitation patterns. And we need to talk about that. So let's go straight into temperatures first. This is going to be an animation coming from the National Digital Forecast Database. High temperatures are labeled and the color-coded are the departures from normal. So our first round of some cooler weather coming through here on Thursday. We're going to see that sweeping down into this region by Friday. See it? But you're going to notice a quick rebound in temperatures here for Saturday. Much of the northern plains going back over to summer-like temperatures or midsummer-like temperatures, and it's extremely hot up the west coast. From Saturday into Sunday, remember this is where the trough begins. Watch this here, Sunday into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. What a remarkable difference. Look at this part of Colorado. If I just step you back here, 85 to 90 on Monday. By Tuesday in the 50s for highs. That's an incredible change. Now the concern is going to be over these minimum temperatures. So we can see that on Tuesday, the minimum temperatures here, I got a lot of 30s, 40s, and low 50s. And on Wednesday, those 30s may extend down here into parts of the central plains of the United States. Warm west, warm east, but right in the middle where that trough digs, that's what we got from the National Digital Forecast Database. Of course, seeing this gets us concerned about frost. If you go back and watch my long-range analysis from yesterday, we talked about the operational GFS versus the ensemble, and that's what we're going to do again. 3 time periods. Over on the left, Monday morning, middle, Tuesday morning, right, Wednesday morning. You're looking for these colors. That would be where the temperatures are below freezing. You see coming out of parts of Saskatchewan into Manitoba, that is where we're going to have our frost threat on Monday morning. On Tuesday, it then gets into eastern parts of Saskatchewan, a lot of Manitoba, and then over to this part of Ontario, with 30s here for lows getting into the northern plains. By Wednesday, a major model difference here, the operational GFS backed off on the frost threat through parts of Nebraska, but still has it in this section of Minnesota. Now, what about the ensemble support? Well, we don't see quite the extent of the cold weather in the ensembles. You're looking now at probabilities of getting a freezing temperature. And keep an eye on this yellow color, which is a 50% chance. So you can see the extent of the colder air coming into parts of Saskatchewan and into this part of Manitoba. But notice it does not bring the frost here into really any part of the United States. The European, cutting the low off and leaving it over the southwest, says nope, no frost threat. Yeah, you'll get some temperature, some lows that will be in the middle to upper 30s, but just notice you don't see the frost threat in the European. It keeps the cold air back here over the higher elevations of the Rocky Mountains. So what about frost dates? Well, I want you to pause the video and just take a look at this graphic again. I put it in today's forecast once again, looking at the average first freeze date of the season. Data here comes from the GHCN, put together by Brian Bretschneider. Great follow on Twitter. Here's some analysis that I did, just showing you how often we get a frost by September 15th since 1981. Again, you can pause the video and look at some of the numbers here. You can see that it's very rare to get a frost pretty far to the south here at this point. In fact, only happening 1 or 2 times since 1981. And don't forget that what could really back the threat of a frost away is if the winds pick up, got some cloud cover to hold that heat in, and don't forget about the plant canopy plus your warmer soils. So the models may struggle with picking up on that. But as you get back into parts of Montana, the high plains, North Dakota, Minnesota, since 1981, we averaged during that time period 6 to 10 of those years, and then some places as you get farther to the north, maybe 10 to 15 of those years do have frost by that point of the season. So something to keep an eye on here. From there, I do want to show you that right now the Hydrologic Prediction Center's winter weather outlook, looking at the probability of exceeding the development of at least 2.5 inches of snow here, you can see where they're putting that in this part of the Rockies. So we could get our snow elevations down here between 6,000 and 8,000 feet. Well, as we work toward the end of this, let's see how things shape up in that day 10 forecast. The GFS leaving a trough in the west, the European advancing it farther forward. Implications of this? Well, this is now the week 2, so September 10th through the 17th precipitation patterns. You can see that the GFS is keeping this region wetter than normal, but the European is keeping that much farther to the east. The European is also seeing this particular corridor as potentially having some tropical cyclone development, which we're going to have to watch very, very carefully. From there, I'm going to wrap it up with 2 more sets of maps. First, this is the 6 to 10 day outlook from the GFS and the European, both showing the heat west and the cooler temperatures in the central part of the United States. As we go from there, though, out to the 11 to 15 day, remember how the GFS kept backing that trough up? It brings in this brief warm-up here as we work our way toward the middle part of September, whereas the European, with a more progressive trough, keeps this area cooler. So these model comparisons are going to be critical to understanding where this pattern's going. We'll keep a close eye on it, report back to you. Thank you for your attention today. Hope you have a great end to your week. Thanks.